So I don't want to define you by your adversary, but I think it is important to set the stage of where you are running for office. People probably have heard of Ritchie Torres. This is the person you'll be challenging. He's a big fan of Israel. He represents one of the poorest districts in the country, and seems to care a lot more about Israel than he does about his constituents. And I wanted to kick this off by showing a video, a snippet of a video of an interview that Adam Friedland did with Ritchie Torres, and then you did a kind of mashup reaction. So let's show that, and then we're going to get into it.
South Bronx. People are not
Yeah.
talking about Israel. People are talking about
It
how to
sucks,
put
dude.
food on the table
It's
and
all
pay the
people
bills.
yeah.
Maybe in your world, that's what people are talking
No,
about. But
I
in my
don't.
world, people are struggling.
I don't think Ritchie Torres knows as much as he thinks he knows about the people of the Bronx. I mean, we are a diverse borough, among the most ethnically and racially diverse boroughs in New York City. And there are people from all over the world that experience oppression. We know what justice feels like. And for him to say that for us to only care about ourselves and our immediate needs being met, it is an expression of a racist, reductionist idea that states that Black and brown people, that poor people are just mules that are just living to die and to pay bills. Our lives are worth much more than that. We deserve dignity. We deserve to be able to stand in solidarity with the international workers class because we are a product of the international working class. So for him to push this narrative, that is a self-serving billionaire narrative that it seeks to maintain the status quo and keep the suffering ever increasing for the glorious, wonderful, beautiful, creative, innovative, stylish people of the Bronx that I'm proud to be a part of.
All right. So the irony there is that you had Ritchie Torres claiming that he cares about, that he and his constituents care about poverty. They care about the issues, not about Israel. And the reason he was saying that, obviously, is because this was in the midst of the Zohran Mamdani campaign, because Ritchie Torres is someone who is increasingly unpopular and out of step as a Democrat on the issue of Israel. But here's another interesting thing that makes his comments especially rich. I have cited this before, but as Adam Johnson, media analyst Adam Johnson, has pointed out, Ritchie Torres represents the poorest district in the U.S., but he mentions Israel 236% more than he mentions poverty. And what Adam did to determine that is he looked at public statements since coming into office in January 2021. Now this was written in 2023, so maybe the percentage has increased, but it doesn't, at least for his first 2 years in office, which is way too long to justify. It's indefensible. So in public statements since coming to office in January 2021, Torres has mentioned Israel 337 times and poverty 143 times. On his official website, there are 202 mentions of Israel and 77 mentions of poverty. On Twitter, there are 73 tweets about Israel and 12 about poverty. On Facebook, there are 62 mentions of Israel and 54 mentions of poverty. And according to Food Research and Action Center's figures, using data from 2017, New York's 15th district is by far the poorest of the 435 congressional districts in the United States. 36.2% of Torres's constituency lives below the poverty line. For reference, the second and third poorest districts in the country, Michigan 15 and Kentucky 5, have a poverty rate of roughly 29%, or 7 percentage points lower than New York 15. So what is your response to this video of Ritchie Torres pretending that his constituents don't care about Israel, they care about real issues?
Yeah, well, thank you first and foremost for playing that video. It's definitely one of my favorites. I think it really gives an opportunity for the people of the Bronx to exist as a vibrant and varied, people, which we are. I think the troubling aspect of the way that Richie Torres is framing the concerns of the people of the Bronx is that this is a projection, right? Like he's projecting onto our consciousness his own beliefs. Like he would much prefer, his job would be a lot easier if we did only in fact care about meeting our own needs and our own survival. But that would require that we exist as second class citizens, that we exist as some form of subhuman life form, which we reject wholeheartedly. The one piece that I forgot to mention was intelligent. Right? Like if you know anything about, again, the people of the Bronx, you understand how people have been able to navigate those same contradictions and those conditions that you mentioned earlier. I think when we use the poverty line as a measurement, we are really failing to capture just the essence of how bad the working class is being exploited in this country, right? So the poverty line measurement does not really fully illustrate just what what people's day-to-day needs are, right? Like, I mean, if I told you what I had to spend at the grocery store just the other day to try to feed my family of five, right, it would probably turn your stomach, right? And those types of statistics are not brought into the full conversation when we're talking about what the poverty line looks like, because those of us that are not even technically qualifying for the line are still struggling. And these should be the top priorities and the top concerns of a congressional representative for this district or any district in this country. I think it's shameful. And he would much prefer it if we just focused on ourselves and did not have any real international analysis, which the people of the Bronx obviously do have, because again, as I mentioned in the video, that's where we come from. Like when we're talking about, like if I open up my WhatsApp right now, I'd have to, scroll through images from my uncle, sending me the good morning images with all the gifts. Like we have an international connection. Like we
Your uncle
are
being where in Jamaica?
yes, 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 right.
Yeah,
So we are connected directly to the international working class. So we
right.
don't often have to go and look for those connections. They are in us every day. So yeah.
Well, I think there are two things going on, right? One is like as you're pointing out, people don't exist in silos, and people care about seeing Palestinians being massacred, and you can be struggling financially and working hard to make ends meet, and also not want kids to be killed, and not want your tax dollars to go to killing those kids, right? So there's that, but then there's also the hypocrisy in that Ritchie Torres is claiming that he is in step with his constituents because he cares about these bread and butter issues. And again, I'm just going to read what he said in that video. He says, in the South Bronx, people are not talking about Israel. People are talking about how to put food on their table and pay their bills. And in my world, people are struggling. So again, it's like he fails on both ends, on both levels, because on one level, he fails because he's pretending that people in his district don't care about a genocide that's happening. But he also fails because he's the one who doesn't care about poverty. He cares about Israel. He doesn't care about Palestinians, of course. He cares about sucking up to Israel. So, he gets called rightly an Israel shill a lot. He does a lot of pinkwashing, which is when you obscure crimes by mentioning alleged progressive thinking on LGBTQ rights. Again, I don't really understand how bombing people, which includes LGBTQ people, helps said LGBTQ community, but that's that's mind-boggling. But tell us about his connection to Israel.
Last records that I checked, anywhere between 1.5 and 1.6 million dollars he has received so far from APAC and the Israel lobby, which is an absurd figure, especially when we're considering that the average worker is subsisting 36% below the poverty line. Like that is, and the numbers are unconscionable. It's hard to fathom. That's nearly 40% of the people that live in the district are below the poverty line. And the poverty line is abysmal in the richest country on earth, right? And the Bronx, you could look across the water and see Manhattan. You see these tall skyscrapers, and you know exactly where the wealth is, and it's not in your neighborhood, it's not in your community. And the people that are responsible for improving your conditions are more than happy to be wooed by the Israel lobby and the real estate lobby, right? Because those are the two largest donors to Ritchie Torres. And a lot of the representatives, if we're honest, right, are receiving money from the Israel lobby and from the real estate lobby. So for us to expect them to turn away from millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, and like it's par for the course. I mean, what are we talking about? What is it? 65% of Congress, 65% of Congress are receiving money from Israel. That is a problem that is rotten at the core. This is not we should rightly criticize Ritchie Torres and anybody that is receiving money from AIPAC. That is a correct assessment. But I think what I want for people to avoid is identifying the problem as being solely attributed to individuals, because in doing so, we run the risk of swapping Ritchie Torres out for somebody that does the same thing through a different means, right? Like maybe they might get money directly from AIPAC, but through some other side PAC would still receive. The problem is lobbying. The problem is capitalism. The problem is that you can legally buy politicians and you could legally pay for bills and pass legislation that serves their interests. The problem is capitalism. And I want more people to actually be upfront about challenging that, because it can feel good to swap out your least favorite politician with your favorite politician. But if the structure that created Ritchie Torres is never addressed, then you're going to have to deal with the same problem a few years down the line when the talents start to sink into the person that you want to support your needs.